So my presentation is on the importance of user documentation. How do I scroll?
Just roll the mouse.
Okay, so documentation is needed because in today's world, the programs that are being made for companies is getting increasingly more complicated and more difficult to use for the users. So it's very important for the users to have some sort of document that shows them how to use the programs and how to use all the features that are available. It's also because the user's way of thinking is very different to the way of a programmer, because the programming mindset is very methodical, whereas some people, especially creative people, may not have that kind of mentality. Okay, so now we come to internal documentation. This is the features within the code that kind of make it easier to understand what's going on in the code. The proper internal documentation includes commentary, module headers, useful variable names, useful module, class, method, and function headers, appropriate use of indentation, code structuring and data types defined by user, appropriate use of enumerated types, and constant identifiers. So pretty much it's just the readability, and this allows for if changes need to be made in future for to the program, then it's easy for a new programmer to pick up where a previous programmer left off, or for even the old programmer, if they've forgotten how it works, to figure out how it works. So external documentation is for the users who buy the software. So for instance, a company that buys the software. It's typically separate documents that would be handed over that can be used by either the users or the tech people at the company. There are different types of documents that are aimed at different groups. So the software requirement specifications and the test documents, a user who's just going to use the software doesn't really need these type of documents, whereas a user guide would be a much more useful document for a user. So just as an example of a case in which these documents might be useful, I want to talk about our school attendance software. So as an example, the internal documentation would be within the code. So the company that produces the software, they wouldn't really want the people at the school or at other schools to be touching the code and causing errors. So it would all be encrypted, and the internal commentary the internal documentation would be within the company. Whereas the external documentation, when the school buys the software, all this type of documentation would be handed over so that the school can figure out how to use it, how to set it up. So the user guide might be given to the teachers, whereas the software requirement, detailed description of the design and all the features and how to do the admin setup would be given to the tech support staff, and they would use those type of documents.